to actually do predictions and modeling and so on and so forth. But more recently, perhaps in the last 15, 20 years, maybe 15 years, the analytics crept into the education system, particularly higher education, and basically involves data mining, statistical analysis, and predictive modeling about learning. It is excellent because it determines the effectiveness of online tools. So you don't waste your time, shooting in the dark. You know exactly what works, and you use that. And unlike in a face-to-face environment, the online environment actually allows you to monitor and track student participation in learning activities in real time. More recently, an innovative study was done using analytics and machine learning algorithms, which was done here in FSTE with our group. And I think since then there's been a few that we've spotted, but that again, introducing machine learning in analytics is a very, very new idea. Okay, early warning systems. If you read literature, you find that I think it's probably the Americans, the school system, primary, secondary school systems in the US. They were very worried about attrition rates in schools, so they wanted to be able to find some indicators to see if they could use these indicators to predict whether a student might actually not come back to school. So they collected a set of parameters that they thought would match whether a student would return to school or not, or drop off at some point. So the same concept is now more recently being used in actual courses that people teach, because we now have a learning management system which we use, and using that learning management system, we're able to identify factors that may be of risk to a student not performing well. So the same concept, which is a much more sort of global thing in the school, which is where it started, to very specifically identifying risk factors within a course by student behavior, student activity in a course. So that's what early warning system is. Early warning system at USP was developed in 2012 by Shavin. He started that work on his master's originally, and then the first prototype was first trialed in semester 1, 2013, and following that, we have now been running it and developing it further, and we're obviously not quite there. There's a lot that you can do with it, and it's evolving. That's what it looks like in the corner there, on the front page of Moodle. Okay, what can we use this for? From the student's point of view, it provides pop-up alerts. So if the assignment is due on such and such date, closer to it, it will tell you that there's 3 more days or 5 more days left for your assignment or whatever. So students know that they've got things to do. It actually centrally displays the interaction, login, and other things on the dashboard, so a student can see whether they're actually logging in enough to be able to complete whatever they need to do, and so on and so forth. So it's their personal guide, really. It highlights critical activities. You must do this, otherwise it's gonna, you will have problems completing your particular assignment or whatever that might be in that course. And it displays comparative weekly participation. The good thing is it compares the individual student to the rest of the class. So at any one point in time, a student will know where he or she is with respect to the rest of the class, and shows login trends. For the lecturer, if I was using this in my course, I could get summaries of performance reports on students. I could then use those to directly contact students. If I was worried about a particular student who hasn't logged in for a week, then I could actually get a quick report and say to the student, you know, why haven't you logged in? Is there anything that I can help you with? So you can actually use it for either you or your TAs or whoever can use it to help students in real time. And you get reports as you need. Okay, so with that, we did a case study with UU100. Originally, I think there were over 1,500 students in the course, and we cleaned the data, and we were left with 1,403. So that was our data set. The activities in that particular course, online activities, were weekly, were glossary, lessons, charts, blogs, topics, etc. And out of those, the following attributes were identified as the ones that we would use to see student performance. So there you go, ID numbers, campus, gender. So we have all that information for students with us. Those attributes were then mapped to the end result of the course, which was either a pass or a fail. So what did we find? We found that actually the early warning system in that course was introduced in week 4. When we looked at the logins prior to week 4 and post week 4, we found a very significant increase in logins after the early warning system was introduced. So students obviously noticed that there was something telling them to do something. There was also a significant improvement in the average completions of weekly activities, which was very interesting because originally it was fairly scattered and low, and then suddenly there was a hype of activity. Things were happening, students were completing tasks. There were positive correlations also between logins and completions. That doesn't necessarily have to happen in every course, but in this particular case, there was, I believe, a rather weak, but there was positive correlation. And then completions had a positive linear relationship with coursework scores. And completions are completions of all activities, not just the assessed ones. So having found the correlations, a two-tailed test was revealed that all the correlations were significant at the 5% significant level. So we could go further and do something with these correlations. So the next thing we did was we used it to see whether we could predict performance. Okay? And thanks to Karuna in the research office, after a whole lot of work on statistics, we came up with that correlation there where the coursework mark was correlated to login and completion rates in that particular way. What that basically tells us that if you change the mean login by 1 standard deviation, which is 1.1, it would increase the coursework by, or if you increase the login, it would increase the coursework by about 3.2 marks. However, if you change the average completion rates by 1 standard deviation, which is 0.18, it would change the coursework by about 29 marks. So there was a much more significant impact of completing the tasks to their performance in the course. At that level, that was good enough to tell us that there was certainly some important correlations that were being shown. So what do? How would I use that if I was to teach the course? I would then want the early warning system to be monitoring completions of students. Right? I mean, these are some of the usabilities now of the early warning system. Completions, rather than worry about login so much. And have that warn the student that if you haven't completed this, this is your chance of actually failing the course, right? Because really, at the end of the day, that's all they're interested in, and we. So that would be one use of it. The depends very much on, okay, this is what, for this purposes. There's a whole lot more you can do with it. You can actually look at individual activities and see their correlation to the appropriate assessment that would come out of that activity. So there's a whole lot of other analysis you can do. So really, like I was saying to Shika this morning, we are at this stage, we're still testing it. We're wanting the analytics to be tested for several other courses. We currently, Harsh Saini is currently working on that, or trying to see whether there's something there for us to work on. Otherwise, the fully online courses that we have, we're able to do such kind of work. And really, ultimately, I think the end result with early warning systems at USP would be, I mean, I would personally like to see that for every different disciplines that engage enough online learning activities, that we're able to say for this particular discipline, these are the most useful learning activities from actual hard data. So say physics, these are the best online activities for physics. So don't waste your time when you're developing physics courses or you're doing online activities with other things that really are not working. It's wasting the student time, it's wasting your time. And for chemistry, it might be something else. For economics, it might be something else. That would ideally be where I would want us to be whenever. But I think the other important thing I did want to say was that what we've done here at the moment is really statistical analysis. And we are, and Shavin has already carried out in at least half a dozen courses using machine learning and seen relationships. So we want to actually be able to do that for all our courses. So that would be one of the things that I think USP could most certainly be amongst the, amongst the leading institutions in this particular area. So that's all I was going to say. Shavin, anything else? Thank you.
Time for a couple of questions. 5 minutes. Yes.
First of all, I'd just like to congratulate the team, Dr. Jokan, Shavin, on the excellent work in terms of developing the early warning system. As I was listening to the presentation, I could easily see how the features of that could be expanded and enhanced. Like, for instance, like I really like what you said about it being relevant to all the other faculties, where you could come to a point to use the data analytics to pick up things like most read chapters, or or most read thematic topics, and so that would inform whoever's at the back end that, okay, so clearly that's most read, and this is not too widely read, then I really need to hammer this in the face-to-face. And so I think it's really revolutionary in terms of it makes learning almost multi-dimensional. So I'd just like to congratulate the team in terms of the fantastic work you guys are doing.
Yeah, I think the applications can go on for, doesn't really have limits.
Thank you, Dana. Firstly, you already know I'm very interested in this tool. I was looking at your slide where you said it could be custom query based for at mark sheet level. So now that we have mark sheets as an essential thing for all Moodle courses. So is it possible that you just link marks to EWS regardless of online activities?
Just on the mark sheet custom query, what it actually does at the moment is it allows you to query specific fields in the mark sheet. So suppose you want to know how many students failed assignment 1. I mean, normal procedure is you download the gradebook or the mark sheet, and in Excel you filter. So what you can do now is within the system itself, you run a query. You get all the students who got less than 50% in assignment 1. You can send an alert to them, or the total coursework, or if you are recording your attendance in the mark sheet, you can run a query of those students who are attending less than 60% of the classes so far, and alert them from that. So that's the feature that is available at the moment, but the course coordinator has to manually instigate these queries.
Yeah, so my point was that mark sheet is a compulsory thing now in all Moodle shells. So perhaps even if we used it without the courses being completely online, if we used it across all the courses, the students would have a way to get informed of their poor performance, and they could be warned exactly the same way as you would inform the online courses.
Yes, sure. I mean,
so
just like, yeah.
Yeah, that's the point I was referring to this morning, and it would be great to see it being implemented across the board then.
This is just following on to the EWS. So we kind of ran a similar system, but it's more a face-to-face kind of approach with the Faculty of Business, leading on to what's been done at the National Resource Center in South Carolina and the American Institute of Research, focusing on early warning system. What I don't see in this, we're kind of working right in the middle of the process. What we're not seeing is the pre-arrival attributes of our students. Those are predeterminants of how students would behave when they come in to register for a particular course. And what is your threshold? What is the attendance rate? Of course, we have a university policy of 60%, but even if a student is not attending 10%, with the pre-arrival attributes, that tells us that that student is already at risk even before looking at the data. So I mean, I support fully what Dr. Jo Khan and her team are doing, and I think that kind of a way forward for the university as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I totally agree. I think I've seen some institutions invest a lot of efforts in doing that, and I also know for some specific programs like in engineering, it's very important to know. But if you're looking at, say, 27,000 students, I guess about 5,000 or 6,000 a year coming in, we haven't as an institution decided that we were going to do that. I know of some that do, and I would really like that to link in to this so that we have a much better system of predicting, a lot earlier. One of the things I did want, just in response to that, wanted to say was that with machine learning, actually, what Shavin has been able to show, though, in the absence of that predetermining thing, depending on how much good data you have, you can actually predict performance. I think the earliest you managed was 4 weeks, 5 weeks? 3 weeks. As early as 3rd week, you can predict whether a student will actually fail this course or not. So in the absence of having that history, this system using machine learning is actually able to tell us that, which is really, really good.